Hi, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon and good evening to everybody, and welcome to this week's Revitalise Meets episode, where I get the chance, as always, to be able to meet and discuss with fellow connections, business entrepreneurs, and key decision makers from across the globe. And it comes with great pleasure today to welcome to today's Revitalise Meets episode is our guest asks the questions that most others shy away from. He challenges your opinions and helps you find more opportunities. Can you please join us today by welcoming Mr. Mike Pagan of Mike Pagan Performance Coach and Breaking Frontiers Limited, and also the author of Mental Wealth, Unlock Your Potential, Enrich Your Life. Mike, how are you today?
I'm good. We're recording this on a Monday morning, so I'm fresh as you would expect on a Monday.
Certainly are. Hopefully I'll not get my words mixed up too much today anyway, with it being
That's
a
all right. Using somebody else's teeth, they always come in.
Very true. So first of all, it's been great to meet you over the last few months and really get to know a little bit more about you, connect on LinkedIn and the virtual network, etc. But would you mind letting everybody know who's watching and listening today, tell them a bit about your business journey so far?
Okay, well, the short version is I did 10, 15 years in the corporate world, then got accused of being the best salesman in the world because I took a wife, baby, rucksack, no job, no car, no house, and moved out to Western Australia, where I had 3 years living out there, joined a .com, did some more qualifications, took commercial skills in there, and then came back to good old Blighty. Same wife, 2 kids, small container ship. And set up a business in a location I'd never worked in before, in an industry with no proven track record and no database and connections. And it took me 6 months to write my first invoice. You can tell I've told this story before, but it's true. And then that in the day was the start of me going into the world of business coaching. I didn't realize that's what it was called in those days. I was helping small, medium-sized organizations with their commercial skills and approaches. So that's been going for almost 20 years. I've written 4 books now. I speak at conferences and conventions all over the place. I've got a number of non-exec positions. And as you said in the initial introductions, I have a tendency to ask questions that people shy away from, because somebody's got to ask those great questions. And if we get great questions being asked, then we'll find better answers, and better answers means we make better decisions.
It's a really good point. If you've got to be able to ask those questions. And sometimes they might find that they are serious and silly, but they no doubtly get the right answers when they come back towards you as well, though.
I've never been punched by a client yet or anything, and that obviously that's harder in the virtual world that we're in nowadays. But no, somebody has to ask those questions, because it's when you stop somebody in their tracks, they're thinking of going off on a tangent or whatever else, and it's just sort of, is that a really good idea? Yeah. What are you really trying to achieve there? You told me you want to do this. How is that actually honestly going to help you get in there? And it doesn't necessarily mean these are questions that some academic from Oxford would come out with because they're that profound and philosophical and clever. But somebody has to ask them, because we're very poor at asking those questions of ourselves. And then when it goes wrong, we're very good at self-flagellation, but that's a different problem.
Not taking it on board and fixing it as it happens at the time. So brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. And really, over the last few years, what's been your biggest challenge, or what's been your biggest achievement that you've overcome in your business?
I would say on the business perspective, because I have some slightly whiter hair nowadays, I blame 3 recessions for that. Yeah, so 2000, 2008, and obviously 2020, and what we're going through or coming out of nowadays. And it's just sort of the whole processes of where property market rebooted, shares have tanked and gone and everything else. And suddenly you're there with massive contracts with clients and opportunities, and then they just get turned off overnight. And it's knowing, and there's a phrase that's some people love, some people hate, but it's used a lot at the moment. It's that thing of pivoting, and that's where I would say I've been very good, and that is switching. So at the start of the COVID pandemic side of things, almost 100% of my business was delivered face to face across the board, and that was UK and overseas. And with a flip of a switch, that all disappeared. Everything had to go virtual, and I would say that's where I'm very happy with what I've done there. Is that I switched the business to virtual. The guys who work with me and for me, they've all gone virtual. So you've got that whole environment where actually productivity has more than doubled. There's no wasted time traveling. There's everything else, and it's also gave me the time to write. Mental wealth, I know we'll talk about in a bit, but that whole process of the discipline of, okay, I'm doing this amount to every single day towards the book, because that way over a period of time the manuscript will get created, and then we can do the ugly bit of editing and everything else, which takes just as long again. But that's my challenge. I'm not a natural writer, but I get the people around me that help me, because they ask better questions of the words I'm trying to say, and they know grammar and other things like that, which is kind of useful in books.
It would help both of us out, I think, in some respect. So what you look at there from a challenge is taking that challenge on writing the book, but being disciplined with time management, being disciplined of what you put in place. We're talking this morning about, are you a morning person or an afternoon or evening person? We're talking about exercise, and you want to benefit from it. You've got to put those goals into place and be able to tick off the box, in other words, as well. So it's that discipline that you've had is a great adamant or to yourself to the challenge that you've had in front of you of actually writing that book. So
for me, it's one of the elements in that book is talking about self-care. And I know a lot of people talk about self-care and well-being nowadays, but one of my greatest challenges, I have 3 young adults. They're no longer ickle people now, but and the joke was always that in my head I was number 6 in my house. Wife, 3 kids and a dog all came ahead of me, and that therein lies the foundation of the problem. I was number 6 in my head. I was doing everything for everybody else, because you don't want to do it the other way around, because that's selfish. That's not being the good dad, the good husband, the whatever. But the reality is, unless we are putting ourselves number 1, then things don't work. And number 1 is from how we reboot, how we look after our nutrition, our health, our fitness, all of these things, and bringing in people that help us achieve that, because there's only so much I can do. I mean, I will train to a certain level when I go out and do stuff, but you've got somebody else, a coach, persuading you, I think is probably the best word, to do more than you would on your own. Then you achieve more. Okay, you can't walk 2 days later, but that's something to do with my age and the training I do. But this is the self-care. And for me, I do weekend warrior nonsense. So 5 years ago, a team of us, we were the fastest men's relay team to swim the English Channel. Woohoo! Which it's a relay, not solo. So I'm mad, not stupid, or stupid, not mad. I could never quite remember. But that doing things like that was just an ongoing thing, and that taught me the love of open water swimming and mindfulness that you generate through doing a repetitive action like that. But it just, why do you want to follow a black line on the bottom of a pool? Yes, I know it's clean, but then every few meters you got to touch a wall and turn around again. Whereas in a lake or a river, you just keep on going, and you've got little fish. And no, there aren't any sharks and other nasties in the UK, so you haven't got any problems with that. And it's just beautiful. Get out the water afterwards, fresh, revitalized, focused. And okay, it might be a little bit chilly some days, depending on what time of year you're doing it, but it boosts you, gets you firing. Revitalise, I think, is a phrase. Close to your heart, sir.
Oh, it certainly is. Revitalise your day with the Revitalise itself. So thank you for sharing that. Thanks for the wee punt as well. So appreciate that. We talked about adapting your business, and you spoke about it previously just there as well, about, embracing that virtual online platform. How have you adapted your business over the last 18 to 24 months? Because as you said earlier, there was a challenge there face to face or in person, and now you've got to go into an online platform. So how have you adapted your business to an online network?
It's one of those simple things. It's like many people, I'd used a bit of Zoom, I'd used a bit of WebEx, I'd used a bit of teams before all of that lot. And then suddenly we all had to be experts overnight. And it sort of just, then every single bit of social media was just filled with talking heads shouting at you. And so it was understanding what you need to know and doing it in a manner that's right. And I'm no IT person. No, seriously, I'm not. So it's learning it and getting it wrong. But that was one of the things I did do was I got involved in sort of small self-help groups where sort of a few of us all together, and the whole line was, look, let's screw it up together now, so that we don't do it in front of people that are paying money and that really matter and everything else. And it was just trial and error. And when you've got that extra time available because you're not sitting in the M whatever traffic jam, then you do that. And that enabled us to put that together. And with the way the business is now, where I can plug in other coaches that work with and through me into clients, and they are then going in and just doing it all online. Clients, UK, overseas, wherever, the whole business model changes because you can be working across and it's whilst working face to face in the coaching environment, non-exec. If you ask somebody a good, really powerful question, and suddenly a cat comes running through, or there's a distraction that goes up, and you lose all momentum. Well, the same thing would happen in the face-to-face environment. So it's just been a bit more forgiving and not trying to be this perfect BBC standard production. But also being mindful that you, as when we were just getting things together before we started it, we haven't got the pants or the bra hanging on the washing line behind. The lighting is set up. I've got a whole lighting thing going on here with a green screen and so on, but that's because I do a lot of this. For most people, just using the virtual screens, but if it goes all hazy and flurry and everything else, then sort the lighting. That's more often than not what it is, and it's 50 quid on whatever online portal you happen to buy lighting gig from. But they're all there. It's how we want to look professional, how we come across without it being so stiff. Yeah, because it's how it works. And one other one that I've done is over the last 15 years when I've been speaking at conferences and conventions, things like that, I don't swear on stage or anything like that. But it's in the coaching world when I'm working with clients, and suddenly you drop the bomb in the middle of a conversation because it changes the energy. Because I'm sorry, did you? And it just brings people back in. And so there's little tactics like that I've used more of, which I never would have done, unless I would never in the future on a big platform. But in this environment, sort of, it just sort of wakes people up again, and then you can ask another direct question and wait for the proper answers.
I think it's true what you're saying, especially in engaging a large audience online. You use little anchor points and little things that you said there just previous, just to drop in, and you see the spike of attention just come back up again and going, did he just? And it just brings it all back into there as well. And I think there's a certain power that goes through now, the energy, the word I should say, the power of the energy going through. You can really shine that through the camera if you've got it the right way. Yes. But even when you talked before about the online world, is that we've all adapted to it quite comfortably. We've upgraded our, webcam cameras and come away from just our laptop cameras. We've gotten podcast microphones. We've got lighting rigs in our houses now. We've got banner stands behind us just to make sure we've got the ambience, the atmosphere right, because you've got to be you, be authentic, be yourself, be genuine, but have a bit of attention to detail at the same time, because you're showing off your brand to an audience of not one, but maybe 21 or multiple 21s that are in the
and we all know behind the banners behind you is your underwear. You've got it blocked off perfectly. Nobody ever know it was there.
Shh, don't tell anybody. It's fine. The dryer's in the corner somewhere. Don't tell anybody. Thanks very much, mate. So with everything we spoke about previously, what would be your golden top 3 tips to somebody that's looking at your industry, or to someone who's thinking, do you know what? I want to start my own business. Where do I start from? What would be your golden top 3 tips?
Okay, the top tips come off the back of the reality check. And the reality check I would target is isolation. Isolation kills creativity and prevents decision making. We're not designed to do this life thing on our own. Now, that's not to say there aren't times when we can be hugely productive working on a project without distraction and being disturbed, but that whole process of being isolated, and obviously through the pandemic times, that people have really learned what isolation means when total lockdown's going on and you've got 3 young children below the age of 6 and you're living as a single mum in a large block of flats and so on. I mean, that's just so challenging and so difficult because the isolation and the switch off and the release isn't there. And because when that isolation kicks in, it can then have a negative effect, compounding on our mental health. So for me, the flip side of that is about building the support network. And when we get the support network, so if you're setting up in business or we're already in business, we've got to have that mental wealth team around us that's fit for purpose for the way forward. And those are people that are asking us questions. So part of that is your self-care, it's having a coach, it's having a professional network, and it's also having a peer support group, or masterminding, as many people call it in the self-development world. But it's making sure that those people have got your back. And there's a lot of noise and names in all social media all over the place where, yes, I've got X thousand friends who like me on Insta or LinkedIn or whatever. But at the end of the day, they won't come to your funeral. So the reality check is who's honestly got your back. And those are the people that we need to invest the time and energy in. Because when we work with those guys really closely, they ask better questions of them. And this is the sort of the other part of this tip is asking for help. If you don't ask for help, nobody knows that you need it, because telepathy is not something that we have. No, honestly, it's not. I can hear you. No, that's not true. But so if we don't ask for help, and I've had the privilege of working with a lot of professional elite sportsmen and women as they transition to their life after their sporting career. And because they're all so focused on winning and delivery, that absolutely asking for help is seen as a sign of weakness. And that just doesn't help, because if I don't ask for help, how can somebody do that? And so when you work in communities, I know we work together through a golfing community, which is great fun. We lose balls together regularly. But as part of that community, when you're more proactive and you're helping other people, when it comes to the point that you need help, you put your hand up and you specifically saying what you're after and how it works. And that community then steps up. If it doesn't, you're in the wrong environment. So find a different environment. So the key parts of this is not in isolation, build that support network, the mental wealth team, as I call it, and ask for help. Those are categorically my 3 top tips.
Absolutely superb. I think it's so true though. When you get siloed or isolated, you cannot be creative from that, just being on your own. And the question is, that second one there, asking for help, is so important that many people don't do it. In sales, especially from my previous background, it is a weakness of asking for help. It's not a weakness asking for help. Ask for help and you'll find out what people can do to support you, and it'll raise you up to the next level. So some great points there. Thank you very much for sharing that, Mike. Really appreciate it.
You're at the top of a business, be that 5 employees or 55,000 employees. You're not going to tell a stakeholder or a shareholder you don't know the answer. You're not going to tell a co-director you don't know the answer, because they might try and use that against you at a later point. Your husband or wife does or doesn't know what you do anyway, so they may or may not be impartial next to your friends in the golf club, in the sports environment, at the school gate, whatever else, will always say, just go for it, Lee, because you always land on your feet. And you're not going to tell employees that you don't know what to do next. And that's where the beauty of masterminding comes in, where you are then in total confidence, being open, honest, and vulnerable with others who can then really put you through the ringer on the questions.
Yeah.
And then most importantly, they hold you accountable for the things you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
So the next time you meet up, so how did you get on in those 3 bits? All right, so you didn't do them this month. Okay, do that again next month and don't bother coming again. Because we're here to help each other. It's a proactive, symbiotic relationship. But if you're going through the motions and not doing it, don't come. And it's, whoa, that's just brutal. But it's what we need to help us stay the course and step up.
That's the reality check at the end of the day. That's like literally, here's the reality. Look at yourself in the mirror. Is that really how you want to get things done? If it is, it's not going to work. But if you act on it and action it, it is going to work. So you got to be visible, active, and engaged regularly all the time. Thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it. I speak a lot every week now, and I dedicate my Fridays once a week to part of my self-reflection. And I really want to make sure I take a deep dive into where I've been for the last week, who I've made contact with, who I've supported, and then what my plans are for the week ahead. So you're hitting the ground running from Monday onwards. That's my mindset of kicking into place. What's your biggest learnings that you've had out of your own self-reflection, out of meeting the connections, having those trainings, or potentially, we've mentioned many books, the books that you've read over the last few months. So, what's been your learnings?
This is quite a brutal one, actually, is to let people go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
There are, going back to that sporting analogy I gave you before of the professional elite sports people transitioning, they, when they're competing, have 35 people in the back room, keeping them on the track, on the pitch, in the water, whatever it is for their sport. Then the guillotine comes down, and those 35 are no longer fit for purpose for their life after sport. It just changes. Now, they may well have a great friendship with Bob, Claire, and whoever else it was they're working with, but are they fit for purpose for helping them go forward? Mm. And this is what happens, is we get into comfort zones of people that we've always been with and always close to. But are they the right people that are challenging us to achieve the best that we need to or that we want to going forward? Because it's not always about we've got to get the next materialistic notch up the ladder. It's a lot of the time it's about we just want to enjoy life. We want to have more fun. Some of the people that we've got with us, I refer to the negative ones, mood hoovers. I'm sure it's a phrase you've heard of many times before. It's getting those right people with us that are going to lift us and help us get there. And knowing who are the people that we should be bringing into our support teams that will help us go forward, because they're the ones that are going to make the difference. It's that process of, all right, they've been good for 3 months, 3 years, whatever it is, but now actually I need somebody who's going to ask me better. And I know in my supplier network and my support network, there are people who are coming to the end of our relationship. They may or may not know it yet, but that whole process of, okay, we need the next level, we need the next support or a different type, because that works. As far as my own learnings, I mean, over the last 18 months, I've done numerous courses. I've done an introduction to neuroscience. I've done some humor in speaking. I've booked on again to another improvisation retreat, which is utterly mad, but great fun. I mean, it's to the point of I haven't sung in public ever. Not since I was sort of probably 10 years old in a school choir or something like that. And a couple of years ago, I'm there in this room, and we're all just there's nothing is wrong in improvisation, and all you've got is that little voice in your head saying, "Don't do this. You're going to look stupid." This is all that negative stuff coming on, and it was an absolute hoot. But it stretches my comfort zones, makes me think more, and with that, that just helps me become a more interesting version of me. It keeps me excited. My kids think I'm mad, but they get a buzz out of it as well, because they realize that it's not just the straight 9 to 5 day by day. This is how it's got to be. Make it as interesting as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Then I would like to find out more about that from you after today's conversation anyway, if we can do. But some great learnings in there. And the way you say, you got to be brutal, you got to be straight at the point. You literally got to cull. You got to be able to move forward and get those people that are around you that are not the hoovers of sort of negative hoovers. They want the positive blowers that are going to positively blow positive around us to lift us to the next level. What's the next step for you, Mike? What's around the corner? What's the next, as I like to say, knocking on the door of opportunity for you next?
Well, for me, the business has changed, as we described earlier. And for me, the future direction is very much about bringing more people in to deliver more with and through my organization. The age of my children, we've got that sort of slight bit of empty nest thing coming on. I think I'm dealing with it better than my good lady is, but that's the nature. But that means there's more travel coming in. So when the events industry kicks back in, there'll be a lot more speaking, a lot more travel involved in that side of things. But with that, all of the coaching and all the support, the non-exec work is all done virtually nowadays. So this is all being done via camera today. I could be sitting on a beach in Australia at the moment with a screen behind me. You would never know. This is the way the world is changing. So we used to be in businesses. It used to be you had to go and where you lived was dictated by the organization you joined.
Correct.
Whereas actually nowadays, this is why certain parts of the UK on the coast, the property prices are just going ballistic because people are realizing we don't have to be stuck in a particular space just because that's where the business is. We can be anywhere in the country as long as we can get there once or twice or three times a month. The rest of the time is quality of life. And that has to be part of the whole focus here. When we look after our mental wealth, we look after our best being and our fun, then set that up in a location that's right for you. Most businesses going forward that I'm talking to and I'm working with are going to a 3 and 2 or a 2 and 3 as far as days going into the office. A couple of digital companies, they do mandatory Fridays. So that means the rest of the week it will juggle as to who's in and out, but the Fridays they want everybody's in so they can still know what the other one looks like, smells like, feels like. But it also means that they can open up the beer fridge at just after lunchtime and other areas. But it's that process of let's be cleverer and more creative about how we work, so we work on our terms. One of the good outcomes of the last while has been that process of poor managers who micromanage and don't trust or empower. And suddenly they're not able to control everybody because they're all working from home in their jammies on the side of their spare bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't know when they're working, but you're either delivering or you're not. If you're not delivering, then fine, you're underperforming and steps will take. But if you are delivering and you happen to be working at weird times of the day or night or whatever, because you're not a morning person, you're a night owl, whatever, then fine, go with it. It's finding that sequence that works for you, finding the organizations that work for you, finding the clients that really float your boat so you want to work with them on a Sunday for free, heaven forbid. But it's having that whole, if that's the passion and the enjoyment from what you're doing, then that just feeds it. And what I'm doing, and I know one of the precursors of with this latest book and everything else is the ability to change lives and potentially save a life. And that's what's driving me here, because too many of us are not supported correctly by the people that are fit for purpose for our way forward. So building that support network is so important to me.
Such a good point, and it's something that's very close to my heart as well. Since being running Revitalise for the last 4 years, and when I created it, it was all about surrounding yourself with the right people and to have that support network that's around you. So thank you for sharing that. And I love the point of, we could be sitting anywhere around the world. And I say this quite regularly on the podcast, is that, many people are now finding that the audience is even bigger now, reaching across the pond, over to Australia, the other side of the world. We're going into Europe. We're going all over, meeting so many people through this wonderful little virtual box that we're living in. And I think coming away from this completely and getting back to that shoulder to shoulder has its place. Yeah. But there's always a process that's in place now is embrace the virtual network to start with. And then if they are local and you can get out and meet them afterwards, do so, if you can get that chance. But really,
but just to add in on that, though, that face-to-face meeting then, though, has to be fun.
Yes.
It's I mean, I have never, although it's too strong a word, I have always tried not to have coffee meetings at a hotel on the side of a freeway or a motorway or whatever else. I always want my meetings to be an experience of a bit of fun, a bit of enjoyment. And yes, golf does help on that side of things, but I'm not a golfing anorak, so that's not always A, appropriate, or B, the right time of year, obviously. But it's those meetings, they need to be a mini event where you're able to really enjoy it. So it's not just I saw Bob, I saw Claire, just another meeting, and you've driven there 2 hours because the traffic was wrong, and that just sort of. I've never done rush hours. I always get before rush hour, so I'll turn up at an office clients at 7:30 in the morning, knocking on the door saying, "Feed me coffee, we're starting now," because that way you avoid all the nonsense. Why would you choose to have that? So yeah, definitely make those. Every single meeting needs to be fun, needs to be enjoyable.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks for your response on that one as well. Now, with everything, you mentioned the book. Would you mind letting everybody know and who's watching and listening today where they can get their copy of Mental Wealth, the book that you've just wrote? Would you mind doing that?
Yeah, no worries. The simplest way is mikepagan.com. Is the website, Pagan with an A, Pagan, or Amazon. It's available through there, through Waterstones, wherever else. It's available online through all major outlets. And I mean that book is there. It's not preachy. It's very conversational in its approach. It does challenge people as to how they should build their mental wealth team by initially understanding how their team is made up at the moment. And for some people, it's not very strong to start with, but that's okay. The tips, techniques, and ideas in there are there to help you ask of the right people how to get more of the right support around you, and then that team builds. So over a period of time, your scores go up and everything else. But it gives you a baseline to begin with, and then that can increase. And once we've got that proactive support team around us, I keep using the word fun, and it sounds quite immature sometimes, but it's not, because that life is meant to be fun and enjoyable. So let's get the right people around us, pushing us, get challenges. I mean, I do silly challenges, but a challenge doesn't mean you have to go and climb up a mountain carrying a goat on your shoulder or anything like that. Just whatever it is that's a challenge for you. The first cup of tea, the first pint of beer, first whatever, once you've succeeded in that challenge, tastes so good.
Yeah. Celebrate your wins. Thank you very much.
Celebrate all successes.
Cheers, mate. And just to wrap things up with us today, we talked about the book and how people can make contact through that. But if someone's been watching today, been listening today, and heard something that really is hit the mark, and they want to organize that virtual cuppa, a bit of fun online, or to connect with you, what's the best way of connecting with your good self after today?
Just for simple ease, straight through to speaking@mikepagan.com is the easiest one, because that just fills email straight into my setup. Or you stalk me down on LinkedIn. Always happy to have a conversation. And that's the point. It genuinely set up that conversation, because we set a bit of time on my website. There's a small introductory assessment thing of sort of 15 questions about your mental wealth and how that works, and just gives a baseline for understanding. And the answers aren't there. I haven't got the answers, but the questions are good because they generate more questions, and that generates the conversations. And from the back of a quality conversation, who knows what can be unlocked.
Very true indeed, Mike. Very true indeed. Well, I'd highly recommend anybody who's watching and listening today to reach out to Mike, stalk him on LinkedIn, connect with him on LinkedIn, keep stalking him, keep asking the questions, and then organize that catch up, that fun catch up. We'll have a great time and a great conversation in helping and supporting one another as well. So I would highly recommend everybody to reach out to Mike and make that connection and start the conversation. Mike, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate you spending the time with us to really tell us your story, your business journey story, and a few extra golden nuggets and a treasure trove of knowledge that's being shared today. So thank you for sharing that with us. My pleasure. Lots of fun. And hey, this is what the game is. Sharing is caring. That's a cliche if ever I've heard it. but that's the challenge. The better we are asking questions and then asking for help, more questions, more support, better answers. Well and truly, Mike, thank you so much. And thank you to you all for watching and listening today. By all means, keep staying tuned, subscribe to the channel, and watch out for the next interview that's coming up over the next few weeks, where I get the chance, as always, to be meeting key influencers, key decision makers, main entrepreneurs from across the globe at the Revitalise Meets podcast recordings. From me and Mike, as always, keep healthy, keep safe, and most importantly, keep connecting, everybody. We'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye for now.